Okay, welcome everyone. His Worship Mayor Dan is joining us from Zoom today. He's just in dad mode. He's got a child under the weather, so he's there attending to that. But he is with us on Zoom, and he had asked me to chair the special council meeting. And Deputy Mayor Snow is online as well. He is traveling. So with that, I will call the meeting to order, and I will ask if anybody would like to move for approval of the agenda. Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Gallant. All in favor? Aye. I'd like to acknowledge that we are located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Mi'kmaq have occupied this island for over 12,000 years, and we honor the treaties of peace and friendship which recognize Mi'kmaq rights and established an ongoing relationship between nations. If there is any conflict of interest, I would ask that anyone declare that now, and if not, we'll move on, and I don't see any. First item on the agenda tonight is 28 South Drive, a zoning amendment application. And I guess we'll get right into it. The background: an application was received from Riley Cameron for PID number 67835. The purpose of the amendment is to allow the existing single-family dwelling and an apartment building or buildings in the proposed R4 zone. The application was advertised in the March 15th, 2023 edition of The Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. There is a large list of commercial C2 zone permitted uses that I will just, if everyone is in agreement, we'll just table those since they are a part of the package, and that's all available online. It just outlines all the permitted uses of the current C2 zone, like convenience stores, animal care facilities, grocery, funeral homes, just a very large list of things that are allowed in the current zone, as well as some discretionary uses and conditional uses. The high-density residential R4 zone, which is the proposed new zone for that PID. The purpose of this zone is to provide for high-density housing in the form of apartments, as well as housing in the form of single-family, semi-detached, duplex dwellings, row house, townhouse, and other compatible uses. And as for the, or as in the case of the C2 zone, there is a full list of permitted uses in the proposed R4 zone as well. Single-family dwellings, duplexes, group homes, quite a few there as well. If anybody does want clarification in any of those, I'm happy to revisit that list, but for now we'll just table it since it is available online and in the package. At this point, we arrive to the time in the meeting where we can take comments and questions from the public or the applicant or both. So we'll invite the applicant, Riley Cameron, if there's anything that you would like to present or make everyone aware of. Now's the time to do that, but you certainly don't have to. Sure.
Councillor Drawn, I want to point out one thing. Last meeting we were at, and you were looking at some discretionary uses, and there was some of them were residential, and you were questioning it.
Yeah.
Back in the list, the large list that you tabled on the service commercial, there is some commercial uses, there is some residential and institutional. So those residential uses are permitted in the C2 now. Just it's a more residential uses under the R4. So
right.
There is some permitted residential uses now in the R2.
Currently, yeah. Okay. So yeah, home-based business, B&B and vacation rentals, and secondary suites.
But on the actual commercial one, if you go back to the red one, row house, townhouse, residential dwellings.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Commercial residential building, so there was some uses that were as of right permitted in the C2. Yeah.
I'll read those just so everyone's clear, I guess. Row house, townhouse, residential dwellings lawfully existing prior to 1999, social services agency, commercial/residential building, and ancillary residence. So those are all allowed right now as it is in a C2 zone. Thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, if Riley, if you'd like to present any information, feel free to do so.
I just wanted to touch on that point a bit more. So right now, as it stands, the commercial residential building, it seems like that is an as-of-right build for that C2 zoning. Preferably, we would like to just build residential only. So that's mostly why we're asking for the rezoning, is to not have that commercial aspect in the development plan. And that's the bulk of it.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for that clarification as well. So you're, yeah, what you're proposing is above and beyond just a row house or a townhouse, I guess. That's, yeah. Okay, if there is anybody here, just any members of the public that are here that would like to clarify anything or ask questions to either the applicant, Mr. Cameron, or to staff that we can address at our planning board meeting, now's the time for that. So if anybody would like to provide any comments or questions, just approach the microphone and just state your name and your address, and we will do our best to answer. And I guess I should add, if you do have any questions that can't necessarily be answered tonight by staff or the applicant, there will be an opportunity at our planning board meeting where staff will bring back the answers that you may have. So just in case we can't provide clarity tonight, it's not the end of the process, so.
Okay. My only question is, like, where on South Drive is this?
28 South Drive, I guess Riley, that might be best for you to answer that question. I know it's close to East Drive.
Yeah, there is a picture. It's 28 South Drive. It's the building abuts the Anglican church. The driveway is 2 down from the Anglican church, but if you see there, the back of the lot actually abuts the graveyard.
Oh, okay.
On
Yeah.
I think it would be the north side of the graveyard. there.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure, so I just.
Yeah, and it's really it's really in behind the residential housing
Okay.
right now where this land is.
Okay, thanks.
And if you don't mind, would you mind just stating your name and address, just so we can get it into
Yeah.
the record there?
It's Judy Peters, and I live on Valley Street.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Valley Street too.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyhow, she left me. Anyhow, I just want to know, like, as far as the roadway coming off of Valley Street, is that going to,
That's on the next one we're doing.
oh, I see, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be on the 130 Greenwood Drive item, the next application that's coming in, yeah.
Hi, this is my first meeting I've ever been to. My name is Don Kobrick, and actually I live at 38 South Drive, which is the red house with the cottage next to the Anglican church. So Riley's property is going to go right behind mine, basically. One question I'd like to ask is there, and forgive my inexperience in asking this, is there any bylaw that is out there for his property butting up against mine for such a large project to have a fence or a barrier from between his property and mine? Is there any such thing?
I would defer that, I guess, to either Director Aaron or Linda.
There, my recollection is there is no requirement for fencing from one residential property to another. If this was developed as C2, then it would require fencing.
That's fair.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, if they're, yep, sure.
I'm Corey Larice, 91 Rebecca Drive. Just, do you have a layout as to what's going to go in there?
I sent something to the planning board there for Lynn Stevenson, so that's about the scope of the project. the entryway, or like the flag lot entrance to the back of the property, will be on the north side of the existing property, which is 28 South Drive. So, and then that would just come up, there would be two-way traffic, similar to just a driveway or something, into the proper parking. And then this is two 24-unit buildings. I'm not saying that's exactly what it's going to be. It's just about the scope of the project. And this here plan, it's got 30 parking spots for each building. And as far as I know, the buildings are set back appropriately. But yeah, so the back of that property would abut the graveyard on the south side. On the south side of my property. Yeah, and I don't know.
Any idea where the water and sewer are gonna come from, Lori?
Yeah, the water and sewer would both come from South Drive, and they would come up that entranceway. And that's gonna be my, my problem, but, yeah, we'll deal with that.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we will move on. I do have one email that came in today, and I will read that. It came from Daniel Dawson of 35 East Drive. And he says, as the owner of 35 East Drive, I am in favor of the application that Riley Cameron, PID 67835, has proposed to zone that property high-density residential zone. Being a lesser of several different units, I see the need for housing as calls are frequented of people looking for tenancy. So that was from Daniel Dawson, 35 East Drive, so. Oh, Councillor McDougall, go ahead.
Thank you. Linda, can you put that green drawing, or the colored drawing, whatever it was, back up? It's just a question for Riley. Yes, right here. Where it says Lot 2 over there, or Lot 22-2 up at the top, is there room in there for units or unit, or would that be, is that going to be used also, or?
I'm not exactly sure, like, until the planning, I haven't actually passed it off to an architect or a design professional.
Okay.
So this is about what myself and the surveyor came up with as a general scope of the project.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
And what is, just while you're up there, what's that little block just under the driveway? Is that like the waste bins, or?
Yes,
It is,
exactly,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions from council or anyone else?
Mr.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, have letters gone out to people, and have there been any responses back, or will we hear that in the report?
The letters did go out, and the only response that I know of that came in was the email that I just read from today, yeah.
Okay. How many did go out,
It
approximately?
did say here.
That will be in the report.
In the report?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it didn't say how many. It just said March 15th was the day that the ad was in the Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters, 200 feet. It doesn't say how many, but yeah, that will be addressed in the planning board meeting, which I believe is April 4th. April 4th. So the next step in this will be all the questions answered April 4th, and then planning board will recommend to bring it to full council. So I will now, I guess we'll move into the explanation of the process. In order to process a zoning bylaw amendment, the following steps are required. Step 1, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a first time and declared as read at a first council meeting. And step 2, the zoning bylaw amendment is referred to planning board for review and recommendation. Those first two steps take place at the same meeting of council, and that is happening this evening. Step 3, planning board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to council. That step takes place at the planning board meeting, April 4th. Step 4, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a second time and declared as read at a second council meeting. And step 5, the zoning bylaw amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by vote of council. If the zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. Steps 4 and 5 take place at council's second meeting, which I believe will just be the monthly meeting in April. So that'll be the third Monday in April, whatever that date ends up being. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the city zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of council in respect of the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission. And there are now 2 resolutions to go with this application. Resolution COS 23-018, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas an application was received from Riley Cameron for a zoning amendment for PID number 67835 from Service Commercial C2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0047 be hereby declared as read a first time. And Schedule B is attached, which just shows the location of the subject property. So I guess I will call for the vote. All in favor say aye. And all opposed? Sorry? Was there somebody that just... Oh, the online person. People. They voted. Good for them. Okay. Thanks, everyone. So that is moved, or carried, rather. Second resolution, COS 23-019, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gallant. Whereas an application was received from Riley Cameron for a zoning amendment for PID number 67835 from Service Commercial C2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0047, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0047, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the Planning Board for review and recommendation. So we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Nobody online this time? I just want to make sure that nobody's voting nay, or that everybody's covered. All against, nay? So carried. Sometimes the folks on Zoom, you can't hear them, but we'll definitely determine whether they're yays or nays, just in case. So that doesn't, yeah. Deputy Mayor, are you still online?
I am here, yeah.
Okay. And Mayor Dan?
Yeah, I'm here, but
Okay.
I can't vote.
All right. So I guess the next item is item 6. So that's everything for the South Drive application. There was 2 resolutions for that, and then now we move into Greenwood Drive, where there's a number of resolutions. So item 6 is 130 Greenwood Drive, official plan and zoning amendments. The background for this application: an application was received from Camco Incorporated for portions of PID number 69781. The purpose of the amendments are to allow retail store in the proposed C2 zone, semi-detached housing in the proposed R2 zone, row housing and apartment buildings in the proposed R4 zone, and narrow lot single-family dwellings in the R3 zone. The application was advertised in the March 15th, 2023 edition of The Guardian, and letters were mailed to property owners within 60 meters or 200 feet of the subject properties. And there is a preliminary plan on the screen there of the development submitted by the developer. So there are a number of lots there, and and street access, new streets, new roads. We'll then cover the current zoning, which is light industrial M1. The purpose of this zone is to accommodate light industrial and other compatible non-noxious industrial uses, together with some supporting and complementary commercial uses. So there is a full list of the permitted uses in an M1 zone, as well as discretionary uses. And there is one commercial discretionary use for the M1 zone, and that is a business/professional office. The proposed zone, service commercial, C2, and there is a list there subject to bylaw requirements of all of the allowable uses of the proposed zone, and discretionary uses and conditional uses. And again, if everyone's okay with it, we'll just table those as they're readily available. There's also the low-density mixed residential R2 zone, which is another one of the proposed zones within the development, and there are some permitted uses there, discretionary uses and conditional uses, as well as those for the medium-density narrow lot residential R3R zone. So all of those zones, this just outlines all of the uses that are permitted within them. And if there's anybody that needs any clarification on that, we're happy to provide that. It's just a very extensive list of all the allowed uses. So we will now move into comments and questions. I guess we'll first invite the applicant to make comments if he desires. Peter Brown, if there's anything that you'd like to present or let us all know, now's the time. And I think you might have a presentation ready to go.
Thank you, Linda. Get going from the beginning here. I think the technology is working. I got to stand up though so I can see back far enough for this. A little bit about our company. We've been working in the city for a good number of years, so we started working with Cliff and Ken with the Bibles for Missions, and that's kind of morphed into the redevelopment of all of Greenwood Drive. Again, our background, some of the housing and redevelopments we've done over the years. This is Lennox Island Church. This is the old co-op building downtown. That's what it looks like today. That's what it looked like back. I think that got dragged in, Bruce, from out in St. Eleanor's actually years ago. Again, Journal Pioneer Building, 1910. That's what it looks like today. That's what it looks like when we bought it. That's what the basement looked like, and that's what it looks like today. Inside, and now we have Samuel's there, and I noticed they have Scotch tasting night, which was a wonderful thing. That's the old nurses' residence, became Park Hill. My mom and dad spent time there. This is St. Anthony's Church, and again, we just repurposed it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. This is the old library downtown. I was very involved with Rotary when Rotary redeveloped the Federal Building into the Inspire Learning Center. That's what it looked like when Rotary took it over, and we did the demolition in the basement, and then Fitz and Snow did the rebuild. That's what that basement looks like today. And now we have Evermore Brewery because the library got moved, and we did the work for Alex downtown. This is the old grocery store, and again, became Holland College. We converted it into the hub and then repurposed it. That's what the classrooms looked like. Now we have the micro suites in there. And now we have arguably the best sushi restaurant this side of Montreal, I'm told. One of our companies is called Creation Energy. So I'm going to spin through here because a lot of these things we want to integrate into the potential development at Greenwood Drive. I am a proponent of geothermal. We were early adopters of the mini-split technology, and the shelf life on most of them arguably is 10 or 12 years. Geothermal is good forever. So I have been kind of pushing for a renewable energy model that's community owned. Okotoks, Alberta, there's a development there, I think it's 52 house community. They have solar, solar thermal, and geothermal combined. We did the geothermal for the convent, for the sisters. We did Bucktoosh Church over in Bucktoosh. We do the math and science, and they make sure it all makes sense. This is the distribution room inside the church. And again, it's a huge building with a huge energy footprint. And I don't think we have to say why we should be doing some of these things. Summerside's very progressive on their energy conservation and renewable energy projects. And just to note, Christia Freeland today in the budget, I think, was 40 billion for 3 levels. 1/3 of it was green tech anyway. That's the house we owned on South Drive, and I think we might have had the first geothermal pool heater, which the grandkids loved. And again, we know why we got to do these things. These are just examples of eco-villages or shared community utility assets. Most of these are in upstate New York and northern Maine. And again, there's integrated energy supply in each of these as communities. This was the Anglican Church in Georgetown. We didn't end up doing this project. I think they're still working on doing something, but that was kind of our idea of having an integrated community asset and repurposing into a shared services. So again, imagine the city of Summerside solar wind assets, which are already here, powering geothermal heat pumps, eliminating fossil fuels, jointly owned by the community, potentially as a public-private partnership and with a worker cooperative. So we see potentially Greenwood Crossing as the first carbon-neutral development in Summerside in Atlantic Canada. And that's defined kind of going in. If that's our objective, we got to figure out how to do it. And again, the building at the beginning, as you go in, will be the Bibles for Mission. So the Mission Thrift Store is probably one of the most successful recycling processing places on Prince Edward Island and across Canada. They have 52 stores across Canada, and they're on Allen Street, Charlottetown, in the old Kent Building Supply building. And it's a beautiful repurposing of a building, and they do an awesome job repurposing clothing and all kinds of stuff. These are just projects, again, most of it we did in Summerside, but throughout the island. So we added an H to eco, so it's eco plus housing comes to an echo. And an echo, first you make a noise, then it goes out and reverbs back. So we see Greenwood Crossing as intergenerational housing, socially inclusive, environmentally focused, economically sustainable, and a community development opportunity. When Cliff purchased the property, I don't think he realized how much wetland was there, but basically it got cut in two. About half is wetland designation after we had it mapped. So really it's only the field and the road frontage that he can do anything with, which is, I think, on the other maps that Linda had. This is one concept that one of our designers come up with, and I didn't submit this to Linda yet. It's a little more, there's less lots, less density. It does have the connection through to the valley connection, although there could be another cul-de-sac there, so we're not stuck on that connector. If it makes good planning to go through for access, we're okay to do that, but if it doesn't, we're okay otherwise. We see the low-rise buildings as being something like this, not over the top, but still cost-effective, smaller units in proximity to the business park commons, the new eco park, and so the single-family homes, the narrow lot development we see as looking something like this, where there will be a symbiotic design going from one end to the other. That's what I said to Cliff. I said, we don't want one developer going in and doing some style and somebody else doing another. So again, it would be nice to see kind of a symmetry going through, and it could be something like these. These are just inspiration shots. But again, for narrow lot development, we have to design the houses to fit the lot, to create affordability by, using the narrow lots. And there is some great designs. These are all done by Robinson's Plans out of Regina. So they're designed for Canadian winters, and we've worked with them on multiple properties. Again, nice, kind of a Nordic minimalist contemporary design. This is just a floor plan. And so we've all heard the public-private partnership, and I've been pitching, I think any of you heard me on the old Holland College to have a CCC, where we collaborate, cooperate, and co-create, where community engagement, economy, and ecology are worked together. And with affordability, I think we maybe have an opportunity. I think Cliff is sympathetic to doing something a little different. Daniel Savard, who just came out with these 5 seminars, and they're about an hour long each, but if anybody wants to get together and study them, I think it would be a great model for designing subdivision that meets some of the new ways of thinking. So in conclusion, Greenwood Crossing, again, is intergenerational, and the whole idea of having the R3Rs for the families over there, the R2 can have mom and dad or grandma, grandpa, or whatever. I think we can do a shared geothermal utility, and that kind of hits the environmentally focused, economically sustainable. I think we can introduce solar. I think we can have the community engagement. The volunteer base for the Mission Thrift Store, they both have hired staff as well as volunteers. And then, again, we go back to seeing the city as a major player. So the first thing we have to do is do the zoning, and then we design the community, and then determine the partnerships. And I'm trying to bait my daughter to move here permanently. She arrives next week, but that's her with her kids. And so there's a selfish motivation to all of this.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Is there any questions, I guess, directly related to that presentation that any of council has for Mr. Brown? And if not, we will. Yeah?
I do.
Sure, go for it.
I'm just wondering, with the housing, when you speak of that intergenerational, affordable, are you going to be looking at people who will buy those units, or will some be rented?
Mostly purchase.
Well, maybe we'll get, if we'll move on to the public portion now, if you wanted to, just so everybody hears that it might be watching online. Did you want to maybe pull up to the mic there and we can get everything answered? And if you don't mind, just state your name and your address for the record.
Sure, my name is Harold Grant, and I live at 74 Lockwood. So my property is right beside the subject property, and I'm all up for development of this property as long as it's owner-occupied property, opposed to getting into rental issues. There is a concern about knocking the roads through. I don't know what kind of impact that's going to do on Valley. I think Valley is going to be harder hit than Lockwood, but if that does transpire, can you keep all the construction traffic coming off Greenwood and not coming through Valley and Lockwood?
That would be natural.
Right, because I know there's a lot of young kids running around the Valley streets and Lockwood kids, and it's much better than commercial, the way it is right now, and I understand that. you got a chainsaw, I'll help you cut the trees if you want to, put residential owner occupied in, you know what I mean? And it's just a matter of seeing what we need to do at the end of Valley or whatever is going on there. But I mean, I'm good with the proposal, the way it's standing. I mean, it looks pretty good. All right.
Great.
So I'm good.
Thank you. Anyone else for questions for either Peter or staff, or concerns, or yeah, go ahead. Just state your name and address. And
Yeah, it's Don Ashley, 53 Valley Street. We're right up against the proposed property. I just want to ask the gentleman there about that geothermal. You said shared?
Yes.
What does that involve there?
There's quite a few models out there now where it's actually treated just like a utility. So it's owned by the subdivision owners and then metered and monitored and measured as they use the energy. So they're buying energy from their own investment. It makes it way more affordable to
Oh, yeah.
tie in.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we could hook on that too?
Not for free.
Oh, yeah. Right on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. So could you, we hook up on that?
It could be, and we could run the numbers, make sure it makes sense for you
Yeah.
and the neighbors, but yes, I think there's,
Right
we're-
on.
yeah.
Good. Thanks.
great, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Judy Peters on the end of Valley Street as well. I'm just kind of wondering, do you have any idea how many homes are going to be built there at all? Like,
Well,
I mean, are they going to be like 75-foot lots and hundreds of them, or?
this layout, Linda, I'm not quite sure how many it was. It could, I think there's a,
Looks like
I think there was about 167.
167. Wow.
depending on our
Single
final
homes?
design, that would be semi-detached individual units, so there's two in each, or single-family homes, which will be the, kind of the narrow lot ones that I
Right.
show.
Right, okay. And, I don't know, I just want to say something on behalf of Valley Street in itself. I mean, we are so opposed to that road going through. Like, seriously. It's just, I mean, I understand development and everything else, but I mean, we're just really, really opposed. It's busy enough there now with people coming and turning around and all the kids and everything else, and we have seniors on the road, and like, we're just to let you know, we're super opposed to that. So, I mean, I don't know if there's another venue, or, I mean, I think Greenwood Drive's big enough where you could do a kind of a turnaround thing, but.
I think on anytime, and I can't speak for staff on this, but anytime for fire access, and, you want that ability to be able to drive through from Main Street, South Drive, to Greenwood Drive. So, and I know one of the designs we had was to make sure there was a stop sign coming at the end of Valley, T-boning into what we developed. That way the traffic's it's not a racetrack kind of thing. So people would have to stop and make a turn to go up Valley rather than just running straight through. So again, we're, I think on the planning side, and staff can speak to this, I know the recommendations are mostly that the stump streets do get tied in. That's why they stumped them back 30 years ago or whenever it was.
Okay, so it's pretty inevitable, really.
We're open, there's a cost to us to do it, and there's a cost benefit, I think, to the municipality for emergency services. But don't quote me on that, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, I just wanted to know I understood there. Okay, thanks.
And that will likely be covered in the planning board meeting, just with some feedback from emergency services. And this particular, the layout that's on the screen now, that looks like it doesn't connect to Valley. It just has an entrance and an exit off of Greenwood. Is that correct? So we're not that far ahead where whether there's going to be a request or requirement for a valley connection at this point. So that's open for
debate at this
debate,
stage.
okay?
The other one that I showed, I had the cul-de-sacs off of it, and actually, I like that design, and Cliff couldn't be here, he's with his daughter in Halifax, and he kinda liked the idea as well. That will reduce the density, and I would argue increase the value, and also create considerably less traffic, be it through, or, I think it's up 4 or 5 slides there, Linda. Just a hand sketch put together by Mike, there it is there. So this one had 2 or 3 cul-de-sacs coming off the main drive going through. And as I noted when I was speaking, the upper one could be tied together with a cul-de-sac and capped off there as well. But if it's recommended that we go through, then, you know, we would T-bone that somehow so that you don't have, you know, there'd have to be a stop sign or something.
Okay, and I guess just a question that I have, just looking at that. Do you plan on leaving, I don't know if privacy is the word, but sort of a buffer between the Confederation Trail and where the lots would be sort of,
There will be a little, I think there's a natural ditch there now, and so that would probably
Okay.
remain.
so yards won't be right up against the
No.
trail? No, okay.
Lots are deep enough for that, so.
Okay, yeah.
Michelle Valancourt, 41 Valley Street. And all the Greenwood Drive is industrial. Why do you want to bring residential there? I'm okay with building that lot, but why not build industrial?
Well, the landowner it's his application. He'd like to convert it to residential.
Yeah,
So
but
that's
it's
kind of what
all-
we're here.
It's all industrial. All that Greenwood Drive, there's no residential there.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the landowner's application. So he desires to turn it into, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's your land and you have a project that you'd like to have residential, and that's why we're here tonight, is because it's the application process to rezone that from industrial to residential. It's not the city's application, it's the landowner's, the developer's application to the city.
And I think
If
our
that-
motivation is for housing, obviously, with the business park there and Credit Union Place and, you know, the new dome. There's a lot of kind of services there and value with even with the boardwalk. So, and really, there's no, you know, there's Mackenzie Drive out kind of past the other side of South Drive, but there's really no residential use too. So we think it's an opportunity.
Okay. Does that answer that? Just kind of why it's here? I mean, this is just, it hasn't been approved yet. That's kind of why we're here, gathering information. That's the phase that we're at. So does that sort of answer why?
Not really.
Your question? So it's just, I just want to make clear that it's not the city that, like, we as a council or we as a city, we're not attempting to turn it from industrial to residential, because we don't own the land. It's the developer and the landowner. They have a project that they'd like to put there, and in order to do that, it can't be industrial. So the application is to rezone it from industrial to residential. Does that help? A little bit more? Yeah, this is the first step, so, and I'll get through the process here as soon as, if there's no more questions, we'll get into the explanation of the process. Is there anything else from anyone, either council or public?
Right here.
I live at 41 Valley Street as well, and our big fear is that there's going to be a road running right through Valley Street. That's going to be a shortcut for everybody that wants to get through to Greenwood Drive without going up to Pope Road and going across. Already, the traffic on Pope Road is ridiculous, and coming down, when you come down off Pope Road, there's no light there, And you could wait forever to try to get out of there, especially if it's school hours or whatever. So if they butt this subdivision up to Valley Street, it's gonna be a throughway, it's gonna be a speedway. We have a lot of kids on that street. We don't have children playing on that street, but we do have a lot of children on that street. And they're on the street all summer. They're on their bikes. And winter. Yeah, there's all kinds of kids. And my fear is that that's gonna be a speedway, a shortcut for everyone to go through there. If they could make it that there's a turnaround inside the subdivision and don't come across to Valley Street, that would be ideal, if it's gonna happen. 167 houses, or however many houses are gonna be in there, there's gonna be a lot of people in there. And that's gonna create so much traffic if they cut through. Also, I'm wondering if there's a buffer zone. Are those houses, is everything gonna be right up against us, the ones that are living there now? Cause we live there feeling like we're in the city. We're close to everything, 5 minutes to go to the store, but we feel like we're in the country. It's quiet, we love it. The birds, there's animals, there's beavers, we have the creek down below, foxes. That's why we bought 2 years ago on that road. We moved home from Grand Prairie. I'm from PEI, but we moved home from Grand Prairie, Alberta. And the reason we bought this place is because it's so quiet there. Now you take 167 houses being built in that residential area. That's gonna be years of smashing, crashing, banging, building. You know what it's like on St. Clair Street in Summerside here. That's been developing forever. Well, if there's 167 homes being built in there, where's our peace and quiet? Where's our feeling like we're living in the country? I would sooner see it be commercial. I'd sooner see a building go up in there. It could be a bottle exchange, it could be a daycare, it could be whatever, than 167 homes going in there. And I hope it's not gonna be welfare. Sorry, I'm not trying to be prejudiced or anything, but I hope it's not gonna be social services and welfare families that are moving in there, because it's just gonna turn our neighborhood into would you wanna be living in there? With 167 homes going up, you would?
Yeah, because
Yeah?
you're gonna increase your value.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yes,
It's not gonna increase the value of our property.
I
No.
showed you what we built.
And they're gonna be individual homes with individual families
And side by side.
and 75-foot lots.
No, the lots on the R3 are, I think, are 55.
Ooh, even smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the point and purpose of that is so people can afford to buy a new home in this beautiful city. Well, you live in birdhouses?
Mhm. Yeah, it's not bringing my property value up any.
Would be, because there would be more people living in that area.
No, I don't agree. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. And obviously, I mean, we're here, I haven't made my mind up yet. We're all here to gather information. But I mean, the one thing that I would say, I guess, to one of those statements is, and it was, I think you asked, if this goes ahead, where's my country living? I mean, the only thing I would say to that is you don't live in the country.
It
So.
feels like the country where we are.
And I know what you mean, it's same where I live too, but, I mean, that was just, you can't expect to live in the country if you don't live in the country. But I know, I understand. But anyway, this is not the time where we, support or don't, so we'll gather information, and staff will come back, I believe, with, some traffic information, and emergency services will come back with what their needs are, and that type of thing. So if, is there anyone else? I know Councillor McDougall, you had a question or a...
Thank you, Councillor Duran. I know we need housing. All you got to do is just listen to the news at any time, and housing as number one priority right across this country. And great presentation by Mr. Brown, as always. And but I had talked to some of our staff earlier there today. I I'm the counselor in the area. We already went through this process last year. I've been working with Cliff for the last year and a half or two. It is zoned as light industrial now, and we even had our economic development department suggest that it not be turned into retail or commercial at that time. However, I could live with putting housing in there if we have a spot for our industrial. We can't see ourselves tied with that, but the big issue I have with this is the last time we met, we were in this room, we had the same conversations, and the developer, Cliff at the time, and Alex, I believe, was here then, and stated that they had no intentions of putting the road through, that they were going to, in fact, at that time they had a plan to come in off of Valley Street and just do a circle and go back out, which would be great. And I know that the residents there, I talked to them many times, and they were okay with that. The package that went out, I wasn't really too excited or too worked up when I seen it, but you know, that package there leads everybody to believe that that's not going through, and that's the wrong thing to do. I think we, as a city, misled the residents on Valley Street, and so yes, I'm in support of housing, but I do not want that street to go through to Valley Street. Valley Street is one of the oldest streets in St. Elners. It is narrower than any other street. Of course, it's got a ditch. It hasn't got a sidewalk, and it's very low in there. So if that was, you know, it's just going to create a lot of issues if that street goes through. So I will not support that street going through. So, but if we can come up with a housing project that will fit everybody, and if we have to loop the water, I don't see a problem with looping water or water and sewer there. So it's the same thing for Lockwood Drive. Yeah, it probably has to be looped down there, but that can probably be looped into this. So that's just my thoughts, and like I said, the residents at the time were very plain and strongly that they didn't want that street to go through, and I'll be supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall.
Did you say, Councillor McDougall, that you will be or you won't be? Just as you finished your comment.
About they don't want the street to go through, and
you're
supporting them.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything, anyone else or anything else from councillor or public?
I have a question. Okay.
That sounds like Deputy Mayor Snow.
Yeah. So sort of tying on to what Bruce is talking about, I guess this is a question for Aaron. Right now, currently, there's no actual development plan in front of us. Correct? So we're just sort of rezoning it, and then after it's rezoned, our planning would come forward with what they think, along with the developer, whether or not a street would go through. So I guess I'm curious, you know, best practices and best planning for the city, whether or not a through street is the developmental practice for that road, or it should be looped. I'm just sort of curious, because I'm not a planner. When we're developing our city, we should be developing the best planning practices in place.
Okay, thank you. You're a bit hard to hear, but I think I got it, and just let me know if this is inaccurate. You're wondering, or your concern is that this might be approved without knowing whether or not the street will be going through or not.
No, Not exactly. I guess I'm wondering, right now, currently, we're just doing the rezoning. Whether or not the street goes through or not, is that for a later discussion, or is that part of the whole rezoning now?
Yeah, so the street configuration is something for another day, another application, another meeting. This is strictly just for the land use, the rezoning.
Okay, perfect. So, and then on top of that, I assume our planning, will come back and say, or the developer will say, you know what, we really want to go, and our planning department will say, you know what, that's a good planning practice, or it's not, we should not do that. Like, I'm just wondering how the decision is ultimately going to be made, whether or not the street goes through the valley or it doesn't.
I think Director Aaron's going to address that here.
Councillor Snow, can you hear me?
What's that?
Can you hear us, Councillor Snow?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Again, I'd like to just clarify a couple of comments. This process is about the rezoning of the property, and we kind of get ourselves through the years in a circle of someone comes in with the property and says, this is what I want to rezone it as. There's uncertainty as to what's going to happen on the property. Previous years, staff and council have asked for concepts. The developer will then put forth a concept, but that concept is not approved at the zoning period, and there's no way to really hold them to it. And so it's kind of misleading if they come through with something that everyone totally would like and agree with. They go back and actually run their numbers, or the property changes hands, but to still, it's not as of right. In order to further subdivide that property, there's a separate process where the developer will come through with their plan. It has to be through staff, approved by council, the actual layout and subdivision at a later date. So we ask for these concepts to give everyone an understanding of what's going there, but in the end, that may not be what goes there. It will fit the zone and the type of zoning that will go there, but you're not held to that exact layout. So that's the danger of submitting a concept when that's in the end, 1 year or 5 years down the road, that may not what gets built there based on the economy, circumstances, or owner preference, or the municipality's preference. So we are at the rezoning stage to say that's the type of development that would fit, or that they are proposing in this case, 4 different types of zoning, and that's what's being presented. And that's for consideration for the zoning to happen. The next step then, as we mentioned, goes to the developer would come in and say, I'm ready now to subdivide. This is a 60-acre parcel. I'm going to subdivide it at what they show now is 4 different types of zones. Here's how I plan to develop those 4 different parcels. They all get reviewed through a process with staff and council.
Thank you.
Okay, just one question to Aaron. Aaron, once the city comes back, or the tech services come back with their review and recommendation up the planning board, up the rezoning, there'll be no statement in there whether the street should be looped or not looped, right? Or is there going to be a recommendation from planning whether that should be looped or not looped?
There may be still comments back there whether they get implemented or accepted by council at the time of development. As Chairman Duran said, if they looked at the overall, a lot of places it may not be, but from that distance there, you're probably, I don't know what the distance is, 400 or 500 meters probably from off of Greenwood Drive. They would make some general statements. That's a long way in with no way out. You know, they'll make some, or they'll comment on, okay, all this traffic, if it is 160 houses, what are the existing services on Greenwood Drive now to handle that volume of development? As you mentioned, what is the width of Valley Street compared to some other streets? And they'll look at those sorts of things and comment on those generalities, but
right.
Yeah, they may, I'm not gonna be doing it. They may still come back with those comments to say, that's what we've looked at so far. We'll review that whenever we get an individual in-depth plan. And what about municipal services other than fire that we go through as far as our snow removal and garbage pickups and school buses or whatever else, how they're gonna be entering or going through, that sort of thing. Now, they may well suggest, you know, that, yes, we don't want a straight road right through from the end of Valley or Lockwood right out to Greenwood Drive, and proposing that they work with the developer and come back with some alternate zigzags or what have you, but
And what happens if the developer doesn't want to go through?
irregardless, the
Or
developer
if
said,
they
I'm
want
gonna,
to, want to
yeah, whatever comes,
honor their word and not go through.
but irregardless, they come back and said it's gonna be one straight street through, staff wouldn't recommend it for
Right.
you guys to adopt it based on your current rules of 200 meters for a cul-de-sac with no, they'll provide you your existing rules in your
Right.
bylaw where you're supposed to have connections, whether it goes through there or not, or maybe they connect the two in Valley and Lockwood. Like I say, we're down, no pun intended, we're down the road as far as the process, but they may still make some general comments. I can't say until we hear back from them, but they may make it as part of this, some general statements, but they'll not be bound until we get into the actual subdivision or subdividing of the property of the 60 acres.
Right. Okay, I have one more question, and it's just to do with the process. When, when will this be coming back to council to be voted on? And the reason I ask is I'm not going to be back until the 25th of April, so, or 22nd of April, I'm sorry.
It'd be the third Monday in April, the council meeting, the regular monthly council meeting in April. It goes to planning board.
Does it have to
with
go
some of
that
these-
fast, or are we in that?
Could you call in?
I can call in, yeah. Yeah, I can zoom in, yeah. I can do that.
But I know some of these issues will be addressed at the planning board meeting, April 4th.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah, I'll zoom in then.
Absolutely, yeah, it's all a public process for sure. Tonight's the opportunity for, you to make your concerns clear so that they can be brought back at the staff level and addressed and answers found if there's answers that aren't here tonight. But so tonight is the opportunity for you to ask questions, and then the next meeting is the opportunity for you to, of course, come back, but that's our opportunity to answer those questions. So, and if there's anything new that arises between now and then, by all means, you can state those at the next meeting as well. So I guess to maybe just clarify, this tonight is or not tonight, but this application in general is an application to change the use of the land, not the configuration or the layout of that use. It's just to change from industrial to residential. That's really it.
They are changing a couple of different zones, the layout, like it's not all going one way.
Like
So-
different density
Yes.
types, yeah,
Yeah.
but all,
Yep.
it's just the use of the land that is being applied for, not the layout or the number of lots or the style of house or, yeah. Okay, so I will, I guess if that's everything from everyone, I will just carry on and get into the explanation of the process, which I think is important at this point. So in order to process an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, the following steps are required. Step 1, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a first time and declared as read at a first council meeting. And step 2, the zoning bylaw amendment is referred to planning board for review and recommendation, and those two steps are taking place right now. Step 3, the planning board reviews the application and prepares a recommendation to council, and that takes place at the planning board meeting on April the 4th. Step 4, the zoning bylaw amendment is read a second time and declared as read at a second council meeting. Step 5, the official plan amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by vote of council. If the official plan amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. If the official plan amendment is defeated, the zoning bylaw amendment will be defeated as well, as the zoning amendment cannot contradict the official plan amendment. And step 6, the zoning bylaw amendment is read to be adopted by council. The resolution will be either carried or defeated by vote of council. If the zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by council, it is sent to the Minister of Agriculture and Land for signature, and the amendment becomes official. Steps 4 to 6 take place at council's second meeting, and that is the third Monday in April. Please note that in accordance with section 5.20 of the city zoning bylaw, any person who is dissatisfied by a decision of council in respect of the administration of this bylaw may appeal council's decision within 21 days to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission. And there are a number of resolutions to go with this application. First reading and resolutions to send to planning board. First resolution is COS 23-020, moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by myself. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 69781 from light industrial M1 zone to to service commercial C2 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0049-C2 be hereby declared as read a first time, and Schedule B with the subject property location map is attached. Are there any questions on the resolution? If not, we will call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Resolution COS 23-021, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Adams, whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 69781 from light industrial M1 zone to low density mixed residential R2 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0049-R2 be hereby declared as read a first time, and Schedule B with the map of the subject property is attached. If there are no questions, we will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. And opposed? Carried. Resolution COS 23-022, moved by Councillor Gallant and seconded by Councillor Morrison. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 69781 from light industrial M1 zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0049-R4 be hereby declared as read a first time, and Schedule B with the subject property map is attached. If there are no questions, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? And that is carried. COS 23-023, moved by Councillor Rick Morrison, seconded by Councillor Bruce McDougall. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 69781 from light industrial M1 zone to medium density narrow lot residential R3R zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning amendment 0049-R3R be hereby declared as read a first time, and Schedule B with the subject property map is attached. If there are no questions, we will call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution COS 23-024, moved by Councillor McDougall and seconded by Councillor Adams, whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 67835 from service commercial C2 zone to high density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0049-C2, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0049-C2, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the planning board for review and recommendation. If there's no questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? And carried. Resolution COS 23-025, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 69781 from light industrial M1 zone to low density mixed residential R2 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R2, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read the first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R2, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the planning board for review and recommendation. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye. Opposed? And carried. Resolution COS 23-026, moved by Deputy Mayor Snow and seconded by myself. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 67835 from industrial zone to high-density residential R4 zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R4, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R4, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the Planning Board for review and recommendation. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Getting pretty scratchy. Two more. Resolution COS 23-027, moved by Councillor Rick Morrison and seconded by myself. Whereas an application was received from Camco Inc. for a zoning amendment for a portion of PID number 67835 from light industrial M1 zone to medium density narrow lot residential R3R zone under the City of Summerside zoning bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R3R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0049-R3R, a bylaw to amend the City of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred to the Planning Board for review and recommendation. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? Carried. Okay, I guess that's the end of the Greenwood Drive application. And there's just one more resolution for the special council meeting, and it is for a tender. It is COS 23-028, moved by Councillor Gallant and seconded by myself, whereas tenders were called for the Glover's Shore Road, Water Street Storm Sewer 2022. We're still referring to it as the 2022 project, right? Because it's a carryover from last year. That's not a typo.
It's a last year's project that requires a resolution for the funding partners.
Right, okay. And whereas the following tenders were received, there was one bidder, Kern & Briggs Limited, in the amount of $3,204,031.79 with a 21.6 week schedule. Be it resolved that the tender submitted by Kern & Briggs Limited for the Glover's Shore Road, Water Street Storm Sewer 2022 for a total amount of $3,204,031.79, including 15% HST, be accepted as it was the lowest tender received. The project is to be reduced to the maximum city 2022 budget of $1,687,397. And that figure comes from the municipal strategic gas tax of $1,237,948, plus the municipal contribution of $412,649, and sewer utility maintenance of $36,800. So that brings the total up to $1,687,397. Are there any questions on that resolution? Councillor Morrison.
So is that the work that was already completed?
Yeah, I'd have to check with Gordon there, but I think when they're funding, whether they were trying to locate as part of the application process or the wrap-up, was finding this was tendered last year and everyone was aware, must circulate the information. Whether the actual resolution was done at a council meeting, they're just clarifying the paperwork for the funding.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, we will call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? Carried. So that brings us to the end of the special council meeting. There is a planning board meeting that has a few items that we will get into. You're all more than welcome to stay for the show, or you can go watch another one. Are we gonna stop, do we stop the stream and restart, or do we want to take a couple minutes or get right into it? It's whatever y'all want to do. I wouldn't mind really refilling my cup of water. We'll take 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, we'll take 5. right, we are back. Thanks for joining us. We'll now call the planning board meeting to order. I guess if my two planning board members are still with us, I will ask for approval of the agenda if any one of you would like to second that.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. There are 4 recommendations that we're going to cover tonight, and they are, I would call them moderately lengthy. So I'll try to read them and get through them as fast as I can while still being clear as possible. Item number 1, or I guess item 3 according to the agenda, 127 East Drive official plan and zoning amendment. Supporting explanation. Purpose. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow an apartment building development, 24 units. Background. An application was initiated by the City of Summerside for a portion of PID number 439653 to amend the city zoning bylaw from Parkland P zone to high-density residential R4. A public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023, and council gave first reading on the same date. And there is a map indicating the portion of the property to be rezoned. The report. Under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Green Space Plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. So A, conformity with all the requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment, the property can be developed in accordance with the development standards of the R4. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the development conforms to the official plan as per section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. The proposed amendment will require an amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan. A separate report has been prepared to address the Parks and Green Space amendment. 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. Council intentions about locating high-density housing are important to residents concerned about potential location of row houses and apartment buildings into their predominantly low-density neighborhoods. To help allay these concerns, Council lays out specific policies below on where they may allow future high-density housing, some of which elaborate on their foregoing policies for special planning and development areas. So location criteria. Council's criteria for locating high-density housing in the city of Summerside include, and I'll just read the ones that are applicable to this case. There are a few there, but there's only 3 that are highlighted. The desirability of infilling properties which are already partly developed for higher density housing. The desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities and services, and of promoting pedestrian access. And avoidance of negative economic and physical impacts on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. So the objective is to encourage high-density housing in specific areas. Policies. The following are Council's statements of policy. There are 9, but only 1 is applicable in this case. So that one is number 1, promote high-density housing on properties already partly developed for high-density housing. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, this site can accommodate the proposed high-density R4 residential land use being proposed. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the subject property abuts 3 land uses: parkland, institutional, and residential. The lands to the east, south, and north are residential land uses. The lands to the west are parkland and institutional land uses. The proposed residential land use would be compatible with the existing land uses and the projected land uses. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023. The public meeting notice was advertised in the March 4th edition of The Guardian. 17 letters were mailed to 14 property owners. Kristen Dunsford, the city finance director, provided an overview of the reasoning for the proposed zoning, indicating there is a rapid housing initiative, 24 units, 3 stories proposed for the property. Doug Gallant and Tara Gallant of 103 East Drive attended the meeting. Doug spoke at the meeting. He was not opposed to the proposed development and recognizes the housing needs. He attended the meeting to gain information on what is allowed in the proposed R4 zone. No written comments were received on this application. Prior to the public meeting, Diane Short of 124 East Drive called the development officer seeking clarity on the area being considered for rezoning and to confirm the ball field was to remain. She also wanted clarity on the access point for the proposed development. Parkland-related inquiries will be addressed in the Parks and Green Space report. The day following the public meeting, the development officer was contacted by Corey Loragis. There's no way I'm saying that right. What is it? Larice. I was close. He owns the undeveloped land to the east and south. Borak Holdings, Inc. Mr. Larice. It's clear. It's just spelled differently. That's all. I'm sorry. Mr. Larice intended to attend the public meeting and has since viewed the meeting on the city's website. Mr. Larice will be in attendance at the planning board meeting. Oh, he was here at the first one. Okay. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, and parklands for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment. The city's water supply in the area is adequate for the change in zoning to allow the proposed 24-unit development, and the city's sewage treatment lagoons can handle the additional loading from the change in zoning to allow the proposed 24-unit development. New service laterals will need to be installed from the mains to the new structure at the developer's cost. The proposed development will access onto East Drive, which is a through street from Route 2 to North Drive, South Drive. It's constructed to city standard. Sorry, the proposed development will be constructed to the city standard. The development will have a large impermeable surface parking and roof drainage areas, which is required to be piped through an underground drainage system connecting with the existing city stormwater system. The developer will need to design a stormwater plan and strategy to meet the City of Summerside Subdivision and Site Development Bylaw SS-19. There is an existing stormwater system on the south side of East Drive, which is sized to accommodate the proposed development. As a result of the change in zoning from parkland, the open grassed area to R4, parking area and roof surfaces accumulating more storm drainage, the developer's civil engineer must design the system to limit the flow of stormwater from this site to 50% of the total site drainage flow, so as not to overwhelm the existing city storm system at the point of connection. East Drive only has single-phase power available, which is not able to support typical R4 development, which most apartments as of late are, unless the lot is underutilized with a smaller single-phase building or buildings, such as duplexes, row housing, etc., in which case R2 or R3 zoning may be able to be utilized instead. To support larger typical R4 development would require upgrading East Drive to three-phase high voltage, which would mean new poles, new power line for roughly 500 meters back to South Drive. This would cost approximately $30,000, not including the cost of service to the lot itself, and the work would need to be scheduled in. This would be a cost to the developer of the 127 East Drive property. The remaining portion of Lions Club Park 40, abutting the subject property, will serve the development and the existing area. The park is accessible by street and walkway network. See further comments on Parks and Green Space Plan recommendation. And that is incoming. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment, based on the additional daily volume of approximately 192 vehicles per day, the new development will add approximately 3.84% additional traffic flow to East Drive. See the calculations attached to this report. The total traffic volume of this development and the existing developments is approximately 18.22% of the street's available capacity. There is an existing sidewalk on the south side of East Drive to serve the proposed development. East Drive has been widened to the city standard of 8.8 meters, curbed width with paved shoulder. Traffic flow within the development will be reviewed upon a development building permit. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there are no compatibility issues regarding environmental, scenic, or heritage resources. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, not applicable. And K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, not applicable. Staff review. City staff supports the application initiated by the City of Summerside to rezone from Parkland to R4. As per Section 5.10, Part B3 of the Zoning Bylaw, the Planning Board shall make a recommendation to Council on this application before it is approved. The Planning Board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to Council for a final decision. Planning Board recommendation, the application initiated by the City of Summerside for a portion of PID number 439653 to amend the city zoning bylaw from Parkland P zone to high-density residential R4 zone be recommended to be approved by Council. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Are there any questions? If not, I'll just ask, I guess, the Planning Board, myself, Deputy Mayor Snow, and Mayor Kutcher, if you can all still hear us. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Carried. And then there is the traffic volume calculations there. I can read them in, or we can table it. There's not a lot there. It's just the traffic volume from the proposed new development on East Drive.
It was noted in the report. That was just the background where the numbers came from if needed.
Okay. So they're there and they're available. And if anybody has any questions on those, we can send them out or answer the questions. Next recommendation is still 127 East Drive, the Parks and Green Space Map Amendment. Take a drink. The purpose of the Parks and Green Space Map Amendment is to delete a portion of the Lions Club Park 40, and 40 just refers to the number on the map of the park, and adjust the Lions Club Park extension, which is 610. So the extension applies to the remaining portion, the ball field, of the Lions Club Park. Background, an application was initiated by the City of Summerside for a portion of PID number 439653 to amend the city official plan land use from parkland to residential and the city zoning bylaw from Parkland P zone to high density residential R4 zone. When an application is received, staff shall review the impacts on the Parks and Green Space Plan 2012. A public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023, and council gave first reading on the same date. Lions Club Park is made up of 2 parcels of land. One is vacant green space, 1.5 acres, and the other is 2 acres utilized as a sports field, which is the baseball field park. The ballpark will remain as is, and that is a map of Lions Club Park. 40 will be deleted, and portion of 40 will be deleted, and the rest will remain, which is the ball field. Report under Section 5.7 of the Zoning Bylaw. When Planning Board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under Section 8.4 of the Parks and Green Space Plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the proposed development is not eliminating the park entirely, as a portion of the park will remain. An amendment to the Parks and Green Space Plan is required to allow a portion of the park to be deleted from the Parks and Green Space Plan. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, Lions Club Park 40 is one of 6 neighborhood parks in the city. The Lions Club Park is made up of 2 parcels. The ball field utilizes approximately 2 acres of the 3.5 acre parkland area. The remaining 1.5 acres is underutilized. Community Services understands the housing challenges impact our entire community, and this is a much-needed development. Additionally, the existing green spaces within the area adequately supports the needs of the residents and this proposed development. The Lions Club Park extension, 610, will be adjusted so it applies to the remaining portion, the ball field of the Lions Club Park. The Parks and Green Space Plan states, education facilities such as École sur Mer allow individual sports groups to use their facilities. Thus, the expansion to the playing field at École sur Mer is considered when reviewing green space requirements. And the neighborhood parks, the 6 that were mentioned, which are oriented to more active recreation needs, are Lions Club Park, Legier Park, Notre Dame Park. That's Billy Bridges Park, right? Notre Dame Park, okay. Wilmot Community Center Park, Lafergie Park, and Meadow Heights Park. Any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023. The public meeting notice was advertised in the March 4th edition of The Guardian. 17 letters were mailed to 14 property owners. Kristen Dunsford, City Finance Director, provided an overview of the reasoning for the proposed zoning, indicating that there is a rapid housing initiative, 24 units, 3 stories, proposed for the property. Doug Gallant and Tara Gallant, 103 East Drive, attended the meeting. Doug spoke at the meeting. He was not opposed to the proposed development and recognizes the housing needs. He attended to gain information on what is allowed in the R4 zone. No written comments were received on the application. Prior to the public meeting, Diane Short, 124 East Drive, called the development officer seeking clarity on the area being considered for rezoning and to confirm the ball field was to remain. She also wanted clarity on the access point for the proposed development. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment that the development has no impact on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety, or on public safety generally. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there are no compatibility issues regarding environmental, scenic, or heritage resources. Staff review. City staff supports the application initiated by the city to delete a portion of the Lions Club Park 40. As per section 5.10 part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. And the planning board recommendation, the application initiated by the city to amend the Parks and Green Space Plan map, deleting a portion of Lions Club Park 140. This should be 40, okay. Lions Club Park 40, approximately 1.5 acres, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Are there any questions?
I just have one quick question. The park that's out your way, is that a neighborhood park?
The one back in my subdivision?
Yeah. So should that be on our list of neighborhood parks?
I think in these were excerpts from the Parks and Green Space study, and they determined based on the size of them which ones were considered neighborhood parks, not necessarily that it was just in a neighborhood. I think it was a classification based on the sizes.
I was gonna ask them the Bluebell one and stuff. Okay, perfect.
Is it Errol Thompson Park? Yeah. Okay, so again, I guess just because this is a planning board meeting, I'll ask for the vote from planning board. If you can both still respond. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I heard. You heard too, okay. So carried. Just, it's good to be sure in case, you never know. We're almost there. Recommendation, next one. For 480 Central Street, zoning amendment. Supporting explanation, purpose of the zoning amendment is to allow an apartment building development. The applicant is proposing to build an apartment building, single story. The applicant is also considering utilizing one unit as an office space. Should the applicant wish to proceed, the office space use will be processed separately by means of a restricted use. Apartment building means a building containing more than 2 dwelling units, except a row house and townhouse as defined in this bylaw. Background, an application was received from Corey Arsenault for a portion of PID number 663211 to amend the city zoning bylaw from low-density mixed residential R2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. A public meeting was held on March 20th, and council gave first reading on the same date. The report under 5.7 of the zoning bylaw: when planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Green Space Plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment: the proposed development can and shall conform with the proposed R4 zoning. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the rezoning conforms to the official plan as the land use is residential. Section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. The proposed amendments have no impact on the Parks and Green Space Plan. 5.2.2 of the location of high-density housing. Council intentions about locating high-density housing are important to residents concerned about potential location of row houses and apartment buildings into their predominantly low-density neighborhoods. To help allay these concerns, council lays out specific policies below on where they may allow future high-density housing, some of which elaborate on their foregoing policies for special planning and development areas. Council's criteria for locating high-density housing in the city of Summerside include 8 items, and this application, there's 2 of them that are applicable, and those 2 are the desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities and services, and of promoting pedestrian access, and avoidance of negative economic and physical impacts on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. The objective: to encourage high-density housing in specific areas. The following are council's statements of policy, and the one that is applicable is number 8 of 9 points there, and that is city arterial or collector roads as referenced in section 7.1 and figure 7-1. And it lists the urban collector streets: Water Street, Bayview Avenue, Polk Road, Ryan Street, Notre Dame Street / Harvard Street, and this one is highlighted: Central Street, Granville Street, McEwen Road, and Walker Avenue. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment: this 1.9 acre site is suitable for high-density residential land use. Existing public street network and municipal services are available on Central Street for this development. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment: the subject property abuts 3 uses. The land use to the immediate east is commercial, the land use to the south is residential, and the land use to the west is residential and conservation, and the land use to the north is conservation. The conservation land use and the existing sewer system locations limit the buildable area of the property and in turn acts as a buffer to the abutting low-density land uses. The change in land use from low-density residential to high-density would be compatible with the surrounding properties. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment: a public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023. The public meeting notice was advertised in the March 4th edition of The Guardian. 7 letters were mailed to 8 property owners. Corey Arsenault provided an overview of the development and noted that this single-level housing is needed in the community. There were no concerns raised by the public at the public meeting, and no members of the public spoke at the public meeting. No written comments were received regarding this rezoning application. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking and parklands for accommodating the development, and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment: the city's water supply in the area is adequate for the change in zoning from R2 to R4, and the city's sewage treatment plant can handle the additional loading from the change in zoning from R2 to R4. New service laterals will need to be installed from the mains to the new structure at the developer's cost. This development will have a large impermeable surface parking and roof drainage areas, which is required to be piped through an underground drainage system connecting with the existing city stormwater system. The developer will need to design a stormwater plan and strategy to meet the City of Summerside Subdivision and Site Development Bylaw SS19 requirement. There is an existing ditched storm system along the front of the property, which has sufficient sizing to accept the proposed development storm drainage system. The change in zoning from R2 to R4, parking and roof surfaces accumulating more storm drainage, will not be required to hold any storm water on the site due to the site being at the bottom of the drainage basin for Central Street, and the ditch system will handle the flow. There is ample existing parkland, Rotary Park, 53 acres, located within 1 kilometer of the subject development, and the park is accessible by street or walkway network. Parkland dedication is not required, being as this is not a major subdivision. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment, the proposed development will access onto Central Street, which is a through collector street, the Walker Avenue to Pope Road section, constructed to city standards with a sidewalk on the east side of Central Street. The access location will be restricted to the northern boundary of the proposed lot. The proposed access width would allow for a maximum of 8 meters of paved access with a 1 meter buffer from the north boundary line. This proposed location will meet design standards for an access near a local street, Central Street and Walker Avenue intersection. Any costs associated with the access will be the responsibility of the developer. The city will calculate the access cost. The proposed development will add approximately 0.19% additional traffic flow to Central Street, which will add additional traffic flow to the daily volume of approximately 2,800 vehicles per day. This will increase the total traffic volume of 2,848 vehicles per day on Central Street to approximately 11.34% of the street's total capacity of 25,000 vehicles per day, which is a marginal increase in the total street volume. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, there are no compatibility issues regarding environmental, scenic, or heritage resources. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, there are none. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the change of building use will require professional design. Staff review, city staff supports the application from Corey Arsenault to rezone from R2 to R4. As per section 5.10, part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. Planning board recommendation, the application received from Corey Arsenault for a portion of PID number 663211 to amend the city zoning bylaw from service commercial C2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone be recommended to be approved by council. As moved by Deputy Mayor Snow and seconded by myself. The traffic volume is, the explanation is below. Are there any questions? If not, I will ask my planning board members to, if you're in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Got two? Okay. Carried. We're almost there. Next recommendation, 690 Water Street East, official plan and zoning amendment. Supporting explanation. The purpose of the official plan and zoning amendment is to allow a town/row house development. The applicant is proposing to change the use of the land from commercial use, which is it's currently a vacant lot, to residential use, townhouse row house, or townhousing row housing. Background, an application was received from Strategic Holdings, Inc. for PID number 1118009 to amend the city official plan from commercial land use to residential land use and the city zoning bylaw from service commercial C2 zone to high-density residential R4 zone. A public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023, and council gave first reading on the same date. Since the public meeting, the applicant has submitted 2 options of development on the subject property and additional lands. The proposed consolidation of additional lands and the land use outside of the subject property would require an additional process, or would require additional processes. Report under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw. When planning board reviews a zoning bylaw amendment, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. Under section 8.4 of the Parks and Green Space Plan, the criteria of B, C, E, G, and H must be considered. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment, the proposed development can or will conform to the R3 development standards. When row house townhousing is proposed in the R4 zone, the R3 standards apply. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the rezoning conforms to the official plan as per section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. The proposed amendments have no impact on the Parks and Green Space Plan. And again, the section 5.2.2, location of high-density housing. Council intentions about locating high-density housing are important to residents concerned about potential location of row houses and apartment buildings into their predominantly low-density neighborhoods. To help allay these concerns, Council lays out specific policies below on where they may allow future high-density housing, some of which elaborate on their foregoing policies for special planning and development areas. And the two criteria as applicable to this application, the desirability of locating high-density housing close to jobs, community facilities and services, and of promoting pedestrian access, and avoidance of negative economic and physical impacts on surrounding land uses, whether existing or proposed. The objective to encourage high-density housing in specific areas, and the policy that is applicable in this case is number 8, city arterial or collector roads as referenced in section 7.1 and figure 7.1. And that arterial is Water Street East. The others are South Drive, Water Street West, and Heather Moyes Drive. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment, this 0.6 acre site is suitable for high-density residential land use. Existing public street network and municipal services are available on Water Street East for this development. D, compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the subject property abuts 3 uses. The land use to the immediate east and south is residential land use. The lands to the north are agricultural land use, and the land use to the west is commercial. The land use from commercial to residential would be compatible with the surrounding properties and would be considered a down zoning. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons? Staff comment, a public meeting was held on March 20th, 2023. The public meeting notice was advertised in the March 4th edition of The Guardian. 5 letters were mailed to 8 property owners. The applicant was not in attendance at the public meeting. Mike Martin of 705 Water Street East spoke regarding concerns of the development of the property regarding traffic in the area and the number of accidents along this portion of Water Street East. Police Services did a review 2018 to 2023 of motor vehicle accidents in the area, Water Street East from Furniture Gallery to Sunny Isle Motel. Police Services reported a total of 12 accidents and 1 failed to remain in the 5-year period. The traffic counts on this portion of Water Street East are approximately 18,000 vehicles per day. As part of the east-west connector design and review, a future signalized intersection at Water Street East is being reviewed as part of the design. Krista Hickey spoke at the public meeting of 702 Water Street East. She supported the property being developed as high-density residential. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, storm water and electrical services, city parking and parklands for accommodating the development and any projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city's water supply in the area is adequate for the new development and the sewage treatment plant can handle the additional loading. Any new water and sewer infrastructure installed to service this development will be at the developer's cost. The proposed development will access onto Water Street East, which is a collector street, constructed to city standards with a sidewalk on the south of the street. The new development will add approximately 1.02% additional traffic flow to Water Street East, which will add additional traffic flow to the daily volume of approximately 18,776 vehicles per day. This will increase the total traffic volume of 19,032 vehicles per day on the street to approximately 76.13% of the street's total theoretical capacity of 25,000 vehicles per day, which is a marginal increase in the total street volume, and reference the traffic volume attached to this report. The development's internal road and parking area will be reviewed upon submission of a building permit. This development will have a large impermeable surface parking and roof drainage areas, which is required to be piped through an underground drainage system connecting with the existing city stormwater system. The developer will need to design a stormwater plan and strategy to meet this City of Summerside Development Bylaw SS 19 requirement. There is an existing piped storm system along the frontage of the property on Water Street East with sufficient sizing to accept the development's storm drainage system. A main drainage pipe entering the low area drainage swale through this property from the north side of Water Street East. The change in zoning from C2 to R4, with large parking and roof surfaces accumulating more storm drainage, will not be required to hold any storm water on the site due to the site being at the bottom of the drainage basin for this area on Water Street East, and the ditch system will handle the flow. There is a main line storm system crossing Water Street East near this location, draining to a swale on or near the property. This drainage system will have to be indicated on the site plan for further review to ensure there are any conflicts within 6 meters of this system. Electrical is and will be adequate for the proposed development. There's ample parkland, the Wilmot Community Center located within 250 meters of the subject development, and the park is accessible by street or walkway network. Parkland dedication is not required, being as there is no major subdivision of lands. G, impacts from the development on pedestrian, vehicular access and safety, and on public safety generally. Staff comment, there is an existing sidewalk for pedestrian access on the south side of Water Street East, which has a minimum of 1.5 meters or larger setback from the street edge as per Collector Street city standards. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, this development is bordering a drainage basin low area on the southern and eastern boundaries, which must be delineated by the Department of Environment and shown on the site plan upon submission for a building permit. The storm system outlet to the drainage area is subject to any and all Department of Environment erosion protection requirements. As a minimum, siltation fencing along the southern boundaries for erosion control during construction and protection of any open vegetation areas is required. There are no compatibility issues regarding scenic or heritage resources. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, not applicable. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw, and there are none. K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, the change of building use will require professional design. Staff review, city staff supports the application from Strategic Enterprises, Inc. to rezone from C2 to R4, Lot 4, subject to a site plan review. As per section 5.10, part B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. And the planning board recommendation, the application received from Strategic Holdings, Inc. for PID number 1118009 to amend the city official plan from commercial land use to residential land use, and the city zoning bylaw from service commercial C2 zone to high density residential R4 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. And that was moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Are there any questions?
Councillor Duran, was that, is this the same property that they were in for before wanting to put an apartment building on it? This is a different one? Do you remember that one we had last year or the year before?
Yeah, there's under the sketch there's a yellow strip right there.
That's it, okay.
That was the 50-unit one. The hash marked over there, 2 or 3 lots over,
Okay,
is this one.
Okay.
I think Councillor,
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Snow, was that you that?
Yeah, so just looking at the map, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so looking at the map, I actually stopped out there last week, just because I was curious. And what's identified as the subject property doesn't look like the property that's staked off. So I'm just curious, there's a property that's staked, it looks to be the one next to it, the white one. Does the same person own both of those properties?
Same person owns both of those properties, but we were told they were originally, when they put this in, that it was going to be only going to be on lot 4. So that's why we presented these couple of options that showed going well over lot 4, and we are today. That's what we advised in our notification, as well as anybody that asked. Today, we're only considering lot 4. If he wants to do something else on the lot next door, he's going to have to go through a process again, because we were very clear multiple times that this was happening on lot 4, and if it was close to lot 4 when we were there, but if you look at the concepts, one whole building is on the other lot, and, sorry, I'll slow down. One there, the white is the building, the gray is the parking lot, so there's a whole 4-unit building on the other lot, and then the other concept is a 6-unit building, and 2 of the units are on the other lot. So we're not approving that use, we're only approving the rezoning of lot 4, and they'll have to come in with a plan that fits only on lot 4, or go through the process and rezone the abutting lot as well. We rezoned the backland a couple of years ago when they wanted to do that other 50-unit building, and this lot was left as residential, the additional lot. So this is the second time we're going through this and trying to clarify and make sure what we gave consistent information to the public as to what was actually being. If there was a slight adjustment to that boundary line of 4, we would be looking at it ourselves internally, but not when it's a third of the development or the entire developable area. If you look at the one concept, sorry, Linda, the one with the 6-unit one, almost all the buildable area is part of the concept. The rest is, so that's not what's being considered here tonight, only lot 4.
Okay. I guess that was a little bit of my concern too, because with Water Street East being as busy as it is, there was the first one you showed was one entrance off of Water Street, and the next one is 3 entrances off Water Street. So I was kind of confused in that. Thank you.
The one with 3, though, would be on 2 separate lots, so they could have an access in each lot, but yeah.
And I guess that's where when people were driving by, like Councillor Snow said, that was where the confusion was because there's just been a bit there lately with the apartment complex proposal and then this one, and then when the stakes are sort of scattered, it led people wondering what was going on. So.
And I think we weren't part of it, but as was noted, they had to demarc. There's a drainage issue or swale in behind, which was brought up again by one of the people that were here at the time. I think he did stake out and have the Department of Environment up there to actually, so some of those staking might be the limits or the size of development. Linda can comment if she wants to.
Yeah, so what we understood in speaking with the Department of Environment, that he basically marked out where he wanted to put the building and then asked them what he could do to accommodate that. And I don't believe he's gotten a clear answer yet from Department of Environment as to what would be required.
So chances are we'll be back here at some point for that lot 5.
If he wants to do something, right now we are dealing with lot 4, and if it's talking like what's submitted, we'll be back here.
Yeah, okay.
Just one other thing to clarify. Both of these proposals show a consolidation of that neighboring piece. That neighboring piece of land currently belongs to the larger parcel. When I go back to this slide here. So this street frontage is the only street frontage for all of this piece of land right now. So he may be limited to what he could subdivide off there in order to still maintain a frontage for this lot here. So we're currently not even sure if that's feasible to split that lot.
And no pun intended, in future time or down the road, the overall concept was to put that larger on the yellow, I'll say, strip towards the street with a 50 unit. Beside that was another road to come in there to access all that remaining land. And if that remaining land then had access, he might be able to do something with that other lot up at Water Street, because it would be able to be. But right now, that's the only access for that until such time as that other road get built. So it could happen. And yeah.
Okay. So we're not saving any time per se. It's just do one before the other.
We were saving time because the meeting dates, the way they were falling, we said if you get your stuff in, we can add it on with the other items that were there. We had 2 other ones here, so we got stuff in, and now when you're getting concepts in, they don't match as original conversations, and say, look, we already presented what we told you could happen on this lot 4.
Yeah.
So we can't go and change and now add this one in when we didn't notify people about this other lot.
Yeah, okay.
But we still can do a development or rezoning for this lot 4.
Okay. It's complicated, but it's clear, like, yeah, okay. So I guess we'll just, don't think I called for the vote yet. No, so, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. All in favor from the planning board, say aye. Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Carried. And that brings us to the end of the evening. If there's nothing else, I will just thank you all for your patience, and we'll see you all tomorrow for the budget vote at noon. You can do the talking tomorrow. What do you call it? Adjourned.